So per ESPN's Chris Lowe, Chip Kelly to Oregon's not out of the picture. I know I kind of did a video on this one already, talking about how there's a possibility Chip Kelly could return to Oregon after having been away from the program for almost 10 years now. But it seems like it could actually happen because Chris Lowe says he has sources saying that Oregon's willing to make this reunion happen and willing to push to have this reunion happen. Now, it would take a lot for that to happen because, well, Chip Kelly's on a contract. He's obviously working with UCLA. UCLA's come off his best season with the Bruins, where they went 8-4. Prior to that, 3 pretty disappointing seasons: 3-9, 4-8, 3-4. And like I said, this year, the best by far, 8-4, where they actually had a couple really good games. The highest they were ranked in the AP poll was 13th overall. They have some great players in their program right now, but probably going to go to the NFL draft. Guys like Zach Charbonnet at running back, of course. So, with the possibility of some of his better players going to the draft this year, would Chip Kelly consider returning to Oregon? If he does, it'd be very interesting because a lot of these programs have already got their coaches. Florida, obviously, Notre Dame hired from within, LSU, Ole Miss is keeping Lane Kiffin, Oklahoma got Brent Venables from Clemson. I still hate that, but they did. USC obviously got their man. A lot of these top programs already hired coaches. And if Oregon wants to continue to be viewed as a upper tier, I won't say, obviously not top tier, but I say upper tier college football program because they have been pretty good relative to their conference and relative to a lot of other programs in the nation so far. If they want to continue remaining in that conversation, getting a coach soon would be very, very helpful because obviously Mario Cristobal, their former head coach now, is going to Miami. He's going to be the head coach there. They've also changed the AD there as well. Oregon needs to kind of figure out what their identity is. And they kind of got stuck as the last team, or last big team, really needing a head coach at this point. Which, I mean, there's a team like this every year. It just happens to be Oregon this time around, and it just stinks because, yeah, this is probably a very attractive job. They produce a lot of NFL talent at Oregon. You have a really good shot at winning a relatively, I won't call it weak, but a weaker conference. It's not like the SEC. It's not like the Big Ten. You have a better shot at winning that yearly and dominating that conference, similar to an ACC, where the ACC kind of is wide open now, but in the past, Clemson dominated that whole conference. You have an opportunity to do that at Oregon. You just need to find the right coach. And it could be Chip Kelly. Again, Chip Kelly came off his best year at UCLA. You can make the criticism that, yeah, it's 1 year, and he's had 3 bad years prior to that. And that could be a problem with it. Maybe that's why he won't ultimately go there. But I think, really, if Oregon really wants Chip Kelly back, the issue could be this $9 million buyout that Chip Kelly will have to pay should he decide to leave UCLA ahead of January 15th of this coming year. Now, UCLA faces North Carolina State in their bowl game on December 28th, so he could technically still stay for the bowl game and pay the buyout and leave by January 15th, or he could, just wait. But again, every day at this point, you're losing potential recruits, and there's a whole issue of like, now, do you really want to wait at a minimum 4 more weeks or so before hiring a new head coach, a whole month from now? Considering that a lot of schools were in a rush to get it done within the first week or so of this kind of opening coaching period. That's a big issue if you're Oregon. Do you want to buck the trend and wait a whole month on top of what you've already wasted probably 2 weeks at this point? And granted, Mario Cristobal has not been gone for 2 weeks, but other schools got a 2-week head start on this whole search. So if the deal is, hey, you're going to come be Oregon's head coach again, and they're telling this to Chip Kelly, and he decides to come, you're going to have to probably pay that $9 million buyout for him, or compensate him up front for that $9 million buyout, and still pay him probably $8 million a year at least for 5+ years, something like that. Considering the deals, guys like Cristobal have gotten all those massive contracts, really, for head coaches this offseason. You're probably going to have to pay between $7 to $8 million per year for, I would say, at least 4 years, but probably 5. And you're going to have to pay for that, most of that buyout up front. On top of that, with how we see some schools like USC treating their new coaches, you might have to pay for a house. You have to pay for first-class transportation. It's all kinds of stuff that you might have to pay for. And if you're, as an athletic program, willing to shell out all that money, then fine, you could have Chip Kelly. But again, it's probably going to take a lot to pry him away from UCLA financially because of that buyout. And because Oregon probably wants to get a head coach in place as soon as possible. So you can prepare for recruiting for the next, or that upcoming class and into the future. So you can have a set way of your program. You know who your coordinators are. You have directions for the players who are currently in the organization. And if you have any guys who are debating whether they want to come back to school or not, or transfer or not, having a head coach in place and having a coaching staff in place would be huge for that. So if you're Oregon, you probably don't want to wait for Chip Kelly to hit that January 15th mark. And if you're Chip Kelly, it would really benefit you to wait until January 15th or wait until past that point where you don't have that $9 million buyout. And yeah, I mean, that's mainly the summary of the situation right now. Oregon could, of course, go after any one of a number of different coaches at this point. Chip Kelly has not been, let's say, fantastic as head coach in recent years. He had a couple of good years. Well, he had some really good years in Oregon. Just to recap, 2009 to 2012, he was the head coach at Oregon. They went 10-3, 12-1, 12-2, and 12-1. And they lost the BCS championship game in 2010. They lost the Rose Bowl in 2009. They won the Rose Bowl in 2011, and they won the Fiesta Bowl in 2012. So, all very good years. And granted, the 2 years they lost the championship and the Rose Bowl, but still losing those games, just getting to those games is a pretty big accomplishment to begin with. Most of the nation, like 90% of the nation, would be willing to accept losing the Rose Bowl as a successful season for the most part, or losing a championship game as a successful season. But yeah, that's basically, I mean, he has a great history at Oregon. I just don't know if financially it makes sense. And again, he's had one good year at UCLA. Prior to that, in the NFL, everything kind of went south for him after just a couple of years. He's never really been, at least recently, in a place long term. Think about it, 4 years at Oregon, a couple of years at the Eagles. I think it was with the Niners like 1 or 2 years, maybe just 1 year. UCLA, 4 years right now. So you have to consider long term. Does it make sense to bring Chip Kelly in when recent history says he's a short term kind of head coach who might have some success or might take a while to build to some success? Just something else to consider. But for now, I'll talk to you guys all later.